There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
Girl, I know you've heard some wild Hollywood gossip before, but buckle up because this story right here is so outrageous that the entire industry was left speechless. Imagine a big deal remake, a rising star who refused to hush up, and a major theater chain pulling the movie from every single screen like it was radioactive. Yes, honey, it got that real. One moment, you had Disney pumping out glittery promotions for a classic fairy tale comeback. The next, you had AMC yanking it from theaters, leaving folks scratching their heads and sipping tea. And trust me, this tea is hot enough to burn. The meltdown that set this entire fiasco ablaze happened on live TV in the most dramatic way possible. If you ever wanted a behind-the-scenes peek at how fast a dream project can spiral into a public relations nightmare, you've come to the right place. I'm about to break down all the jaw-dropping drama, the rumors that swirled months before the premiere, the scorching interviews that turned fans against the star, and the final blow AMC delivered when they decided enough was enough. Honey, you might think you've seen every brand of scandal under the sun, but this fiasco is proof that sometimes even the biggest entertainment titans can tumble. So grab your snack, find a comfy seat, and let's dive deep into the meltdown that had everyone in Hollywood gasping for air. Right from jump, something seemed a little off about this live-action reboot. Even though Disney swore it was going to be the next big phenomenon, folks whispered that behind closed doors, the studio had been in crisis mode over their lead actress for months. There was talk that she'd run her mouth in ways that didn't exactly match the carefully managed image Mickey Mouse and friends wanted. Insiders spilled that the vibe on set went from cozy to downright icy as soon as certain changes in the storyline came to light. Producers apparently saw red flags early on. Rumors claim they tried to rein in the star's outspoken ways before the press tour even began. But from what people say, Homegirl had her own agenda. She felt this classic story needed a radical makeover for modern audiences. Now, that's not always a bad thing, but fans started picking up on a smug attitude that rubbed them the wrong way. Girl, you know people get real touchy when you start messing with childhood favorites. It didn't help that the star's interviews dripped with the kind of confidence that made some folks think she was downright dismissing the original. She was heard making flippant comments about how outdated it was, talking about how she planned to educate certain fans who clung to old-school Disney traditions. Did that raise eyebrows? Absolutely. But the real shocker? It was just the tip of the iceberg. Now, the meltdown might have stayed a whisper or an online scuffle if not for what happened next. AMC, the largest theater chain in the entire country, decided to pull the film from every single location. Let me tell you, that news drop was like a meteor hitting Hollywood. Folks didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or just stare in disbelief. Studios count on big theater chains to help recoup their massive production budgets. So, for AMC to declare, we're done here, this flick is not worth our screens, was more than a bold move. It was nearly unheard of. Even the most disastrous films usually get some breathing room. But word on the street is that the movie's attendance numbers tanked so hard and fast, AMC couldn't justify letting it hog up valuable weekend showtimes. Naturally, critics and fans demanded answers. Did Disney fail to keep the hype alive? Or did AMC see an early sign that this ship was headed straight for the rocks? The real question was this: how does a film from a massive studio end up so toxic that the nation's biggest exhibitor basically says, "Sayonara, sweetie"? That's the question that left everyone reeling, because once AMC slammed that door, there was little hope for a miraculous comeback. If you want to talk about the moment that lit the match, look no further than that calamitous interview on The View. Honey, it was a scene. The star marched on set, presumably armed with the usual bullet points about positivity and modern twists. But once those cameras started rolling, she let loose like no one was watching. Except millions of viewers were watching, and so were a bunch of Disney execs ready to yank out their hair. Producers had hoped she'd give a polished explanation for the changes in the story, something about inclusivity, modern values, you know the drill. Instead, she began criticizing everyone and everything she felt was stuck in the past. She claimed that folks who wanted the classic storyline were refusing to evolve, and she basically doubled down on remarks that had already made fans furious online. Girl, you could almost feel the panic in the studio air. The host tried to steer her back, but she was having none of it. She started bringing up politics unrelated to the film, sounding more like a fiery activist than a Disney princess. And it didn't stop there. By the time they cut to commercial, producers were making frantic hand signals off camera, and rumor has it security escorted her out before she could say anything else. Viewers only saw a fraction of that meltdown, but those clips spread across social media so quick you'd think they were on rocket fuel. From that point on, the View fiasco became the go-to reference whenever the film came up. People joked that they were more entertained by her meltdown than any scene in the actual movie. Talk about a PR nightmare. Now, let's be clear, plenty of franchises do reboots with big updates, and fans are often open to fresh spins. But there's a line between giving a beloved story a new coat of paint and torching the soul of what made it iconic. Fans across social media began accusing the studio, and especially the actress, of disrespecting everything the original stood for. Remember, many of us grew up watching the wide-eyed princess singing with forest animals and dreaming about romance. The star's public statements made it seem like the old version was basically trash to her. In interviews, she'd toss around words like irrelevant and past its prime. Now, I'm all for progress, but folks who adored the classic started feeling attacked, especially when she implied they needed to be educated. Phew, girl, that condescending tone didn't help. Some fans said they would have gone along with minor updates, maybe a more empowered heroine or subtle changes to the storyline. But the scathing way the actress talked about the original, that left a bad taste in their mouths. Suddenly, #NotMySnowWhite began trending. Memes popped up labeling her as the real evil queen, and people threatened to boycott. By the time the movie was nearing release, the social media storm was so intense you'd need an umbrella and a life vest to stay afloat. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram turned into all-out war zones. Fans posted old clips from the 1937 classic side by side with the new actress's interviews, pointing out just how different her tone was from the gentle charm the character once had. Every time the studio released a new promotional snippet, it was overshadowed by harsh comments and a wave of thumbs-down reactions. And oh, the memes. Everything from a vacant movie theater supposedly representing audience turnout to comedic screenshots of the actress's face mid-rant, plastered with sassy captions. People dragged the controversy far beyond Disney fans. Mainstream folks who hadn't seen a Disney film in years started chiming in. It became a cultural moment. Folks questioned whether big studios had gotten too comfortable rewriting classics and expecting instant success. The actress didn't exactly help her own cause either. She jumped into online arguments, sometimes doubling down on her statements. That gave folks even more reason to blow up the drama. It's hard to hide that kind of meltdown once the internet has a taste. By then, the marketing department was probably sweating bullets, praying that opening weekend would somehow salvage the film's image. But if anything, social media seemed determined to bury it, scattering rip-off remake or disrespectful addition in every comment section they could find. While the lead actress was busy igniting Twitter feeds, the rest of the cast tried to do damage control, or so the rumors say. Certain industry insiders whispered that her co-star, a well-known celebrity who's typically the face of big blockbusters, wanted no part of the controversy. Word had it that tensions ran so high you could cut the atmosphere with a butter knife. According to more behind-the-scenes buzz, some of the cast members felt the actress was overshadowing all their hard work with her unfiltered remarks. Allegedly, she'd even thrown shade at a certain co-star's political stances. Talk about stepping on toes. Another rumor alleged that top executives held emergency meetings about how to either rein her in or spin her rebellious vibe into a positive marketing angle. But with every new rumor swirling, it only added to the sense of a production in chaos. Fans loved feeding on the speculation, forming factions. Some sided with the star, praising her bold approach to modernizing a fairy tale. Others took the opposite view, slamming her for turning a cherished story into a personal soapbox. Either way, the internal drama bled all over the internet, overshadowing every trailer, every poster, and every cameo. By the time the film premiered, even longtime Disney loyalists were exhausted by the hype, and not in a good way. Remember how I told you AMC pulled the film entirely? That was just the icing on this messy cake. The movie hit theaters with a limp. Box office predictions had gone from this could be big to we'll see if it even cracks the top 5. And let me tell you, it did not crack anything. Ticket sales were so embarrassingly low, theaters were practically empty. Parents who might have taken their kids for a whimsical escape decided they'd rather see something else. AMC, seeing attendance crater, made the call. We're not going to keep hemorrhaging money on this. And just like that, they yanked the film. Some folks speculated that Disney might have secretly supported the decision, hoping to bury the flop sooner rather than later. Others wondered if it would strain the partnership between Disney and AMC for future releases. But the bottom line was that no one wanted to be associated with this meltdown. Online commentators, including big-name podcasters, dissected the fiasco like it was the social event of the season. They laid blame on the studio for hiring an actress who seemed eager to toss tradition aside. They also bashed the actress herself for doubling down on polarizing statements. But it was more than just finger-pointing at personalities. People were forced to ask, Have these big studios gotten too confident, messing with classics, and assuming we'll all just line up with our wallets open? The meltdown on The View, the social media wars, the cast drama, and the sudden exodus from theaters all became one swirling story that overshadowed every frame of the actual movie. And it left Disney with a black eye. The film is likely headed to streaming much faster than planned, though that might only confirm people's suspicions that it was an epic bomb from the start. Even if it lands on Disney's platform, viewers might tune in just to see if it's as bad as the rumors say. Hardly the grand legacy any studio wants for one of their legendary titles. So, what happens next? Well, this meltdown will probably be a cautionary tale for every studio that dares to tinker with a beloved classic. There's a fine line between modernizing a fairy tale for new audiences and straight up disrespecting what made it enchanting in the first place. Throw in a star who won't tone down her opinions, a live TV meltdown that broke the internet, and a theater chain that outright pulled the plug. Baby, you've got a recipe for the biggest fiasco Hollywood's seen in years. At the end of the day, the meltdown overshadowed everything. The new twist on the story, the special effects, the big names in the cast. One explosive interview on The View tipped the film from maybe a little controversial to the talk of tins, let me not say that word, to the talk of meltdown central, because that's exactly what it was. Studios are probably rethinking their strategies, deciding how much freedom they really want to give their leads on press tours. And fans, they're left remembering a spectacular train wreck instead of the magical story they once cherished. Hollywood loves drama, but this meltdown was on another level. It'll linger in the industry's memory for a long time, warning executives and actors alike that no matter how iconic your source material, you can't force an audience to love it if the vibe turns sour. And once the internet gets hold of a scandal, forget it. There's no turning back. Whether you side with the actress or think she drove the film off a cliff, one thing's certain. We'll be talking about this meltdown for a long time. Thanks for supporting the Gossip Wire. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more of the hottest celebrity news online.